Good evening. This is a meeting of the planning board on June 1st, 2023. We have an application before us from Fieldstone Land Consultants for a storage facility or expansion of the storage facility on Route 135 in Belgrade. We have with us tonight Nick Zaccaro on the planning board, Craig Alexander, and Code Officer Hans Rasmussen, and Rich Baker speaking on as chairman tonight, filling in for Sarah Mangat. In the audience, we have Chuck Ritzie from Land Use Consultants. I guess I'd first open it up to Hans, just give us a briefing on what's being proposed and,
Well, they are trying to expand an existing self-storage facility. It was originally terminated as Maple Leaf. You have the original, copy of the original application with you. And I also did a Google Maps image to show the layout. They did not include photographs of the facility, but they do have extensive blueprinting that has accurate dimensions on it. I just thought that it was important that we have a good visual.
Yeah.
The original application was pretty straightforward. It was much less formal than what we have now. The original approval did have two conditions to it, which we can review and apply that as we see fit moving forward.
Okay. Chuck, tonight, our main goal is to go through the application to make sure we have a complete application, and either the next meeting or shortly after, we'll have to come back and deal with the application itself. As a requirement in the ordinance that we hold a public hearing. We use that as a relatively informal hearing where the public can speak and give their thoughts and ideas or complaints, what have you, on a particular project. So that is probably our main goal tonight, is to go through the application, ensure that it's complete, or if it isn't complete, to let you know what our issues are. And I don't, at this point, let you say anything that you want regarding the project that you want us to know.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chuck with Fieldstone. I hope you can all hear me all right. I've got my. What was that?
Loud and clear.
Oh, perfect. You guys are a little fuzzy on my end, but I think I'm getting what you're picking up there saying. Yes, I understand today we're just going for completeness. That's why I'm zooming in. I don't know if you guys will require us to be there in person, but we're more than willing to for the next meeting. As you guys said, it's pretty simple, straightforward. It's an existing self-storage site, and we're looking to expand on it. These facilities fill up pretty quick, and they're just looking to provide some more storage. I believe I filled out the application and the checklist. It should be, meet all the standards, but I'm here to take notes. And if you guys have any questions, I'll kind of be here to answer them if I can.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. There's a plan in the application. Is a copy of the checklist toward the back, and we'll go through that. And everything works out well, we'll be able to deal with the actual application or project next meeting. So I've got it in front of me, the checklist, and basically that's what we're going to go through. First thing is the fee, the $100 fee has been paid. I've seen a copy of the check in the application. The application form is here. At this point, we can't mark it as complete. You haven't applied for any waiver request that I can see in the application, so that isn't an issue. Agent authorization letter, I've seen that in the application, in the packet. A copy of the deed has been in the packet. Written waiver request, you had none, correct?
That's correct. I believe we meet all your regulations. So we didn't have any waivers for this one.
Okay. Copy of the tax map, I've seen that. Soil survey, yes. Topographic map. Belgrade shoreline zoning, I'm not sure I remember seeing that, but I know that this is not in the shoreline zone. It may be in the packet. I don't know if any planning board members remember seeing it. I know the computer packet, when Han sent the packet out, a lot of that was in it. I don't have that, at least I don't see it in front of me, but there was a lot of material with maps and.
They abut to the railroad,
Mhm.
so would it be a raised road? I know there is a river on the other side of the stream, but I don't think it's close.
No, I don't think so either.
Even all the development, if it was right on the other side of the railroad, it would still be outside of shoreline zone.
Copy of the flood ordinance map, I did see that, it was part of the packet. National Wetlands Inventory, I saw that. And by the way, if any of you guys have any comments of, no, it wasn't there, let me know. Geological survey, significant sand and gravel aquifer. Chuck, do you know that that was part of the packet? Geological survey, sand and gravel aquifer. Hans, do you have a copy of what you sent us in terms of the application packet on your computer?
Not here, but it's what you have in your hand.
Oh, but there was more to it. There were the maps and
And that's all here.
no, but that, no, these were actual photographs and kind of they were maps showing the shoreline zone, stuff like that. Well, Hans is looking for that. We'll, because the other thing is, the next one is a copy of the Maine drinking water program map, public drinking water supplies. But beyond that is a copy of the Maine DOT highway entrance or access permit. Did you get a permit from them or do you not need one?
We have not got one yet. I believe we're gonna need one for the expansion on the highway there. We were looking to go through the town first, before we apply for that.
Okay. Okay, so I'll put, not yet. Traffic movement permit, is that the same thing, or is that not gonna be an issue at all? Great, did you or Nick happen to review the application on the computer? Because
Briefly,
some of the stuff that I'm asking was part of the packet. I know there were, photographs of the shoreline of the for National Wetland Inventory. It showed the western forested wetland down below and the other side of the tracks. And I don't have my tablet with me to be able to go through what
yeah,
is in there, but whatever whatever Hans sent us, much of this stuff was addressed in that packet, was included in it.
I don't think I was on that chain. That's why I was just looking on my phone. I didn't get
You
anything.
didn't get anything?
Hans is HAN. His email address.
Who?
Hans sent the package, you say?
Yeah, Hans sent it, probably a week ago.
Right, it was more. But apparently they didn't print. I'm trying to print off just
Oh,
those last pages
okay.
right now.
We'll hold on for that.
Saying about a week ago?
Yep,
I don't know, Craig, you see me on that link? Am I CC'd on that? I might have overlooked it, but
there's 8 recipients.
huh?
Says 8 recipients. You can't hold on.
Again, I will print one instead of five.
yep.
No, you're not on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I guess you better get
yeah, I'll get on
we'll get Hans to
that.
get
Yeah,
on
'cause I don't like not being prepared. I'm like, what? I got an email and didn't go over something?
it. Yeah. Okay, yeah, there's a tax map right there. There's a wetland inventory map. Flood hazard map. Soils map. All right, Chuck, I don't see a copy of the geological survey for significant sand and gravel aquifer. Perhaps you can locate that and get it to Hans.
Yes, we can do that. I don't think I submitted that one. You passed it up, but I can definitely get it to Hans, should be tomorrow, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, The same. I know the answer to this, but it's a requirement of the application is the drinking water program map, showing public drinking water supplies. I guess we really need it for the application, but, I kind of know there aren't any public drinking water supplies in that area. And the DOT, one of the things I would like to bring up, maybe is a good time to do it. Some of the things in the application that you kind of say, well, we want to get the local permit before we get the state permit or what have you. One of them, for example, is there's a phosphorus control provision in the ordinance that basically says if you get a DEP stormwater permit, you've met our needs for a phosphorus control ordinance. So that's a situation where if we don't have the DEP stormwater permit, then we need to require you to meet the standards in the ordinance for phosphorus. And maybe you're planning to do that anyway, but, if you had the DEP permit, we would automatically say you've met the town standards for this particular activity.
Yes, that's our intention. We did note that. We're gonna use it infiltration basin to meet the main standards, but if it needs to be
Okay.
a condition of approval before you could, build the site, we would look to do that then. But
Okay,
we do need to submit to the main stormwater standards.
yeah, okay. Other state local permits would be, other than DOT and DEP, I don't think there are any other requirements, so I would put that as complete. Site location map, you've got site drawings. Looks like you got that pretty well covered. Welcome to look at that. Maybe I want to take those. I get a question that when I was looking at the plans that you got sent in, in driving by, I noticed that the below the existing facility, it drops off. Is the plan to essentially build on the same grade that's there, or you're probably not planning to fill that, to elevate it to the same height as the other storage buildings, are you?
No, it's gonna be like a stepped, I guess would be the best term to describe it. I have a grading plan in there. That little access down the back off the existing one will drop down 6 to 8 feet. And then between those 4 buildings and those final 3, that will be another steep section where it drops down a little bit. Our goal is to not remove any material from the site and not require an excessive amount of fill to be brought in. Try to balance it essentially.
I figured that was the plan.
Yep. And it's a nice open field that works out pretty well for the site actually.
Instead of loops like on the wall.
You're right there.
Yeah, I knew this was part of the packet when I was, because I spent some time looking at this.
I think all the images probably got caught up in spooling and they never printed.
Yeah. Alright. Okay, the shoreline zoning map is there. All right, so I guess so far what I would see is geological survey, sand and gravel aquifer map, drinking water supply map. And we don't have a DOT entrance permit yet. We've got the site plans, they're on the scale.
It should be an existing DOT entrance.
And there would have, yeah, there would be. I don't, typically they wouldn't have to modify that. They, depending on the amount of traffic, they might have to deal with a traffic movement permit.
I don't know. I mean, it's the 45-mile zone.
Yeah.
It's an existing facility. They're extending off the bat.
Yeah.
In your contracts, Chuck, or self-storage contract, do they allow for overnight deliveries for like auto parts stores or places that use storage facilities as a drop site? You know, I know the auto glass, a lot of times they'll use the storage facility as a location and actually accept deliveries there at night. The delivery guy has a key. Or they won't even lock it, they just throw the door open, put the windshield inside on the rack.
In my experience in the past, it's typically been residential or like just a single client renting them out. But in the case that like a business was using it for their storage, they are open 24/7 with a gate. They may have gated access, but that's not very typical. Typically, we see just a regular guy like you or me coming by to once a month or whatever they do to drop stuff off. But they would be able to access it anytime.
No. In your contracts, is there any limitations to the size of vehicles that will access, like semis versus straight trucks?
Sorry, what was that? What type of trucks were you expecting?
Semi trailer trucks versus a straight body truck?
The largest we would expect to see in here is a box truck. We wouldn't really ever see a tractor trailer coming through here, or generally pickup trucks and stuff like that.
So your entrance is shared with the residents, correct?
Yes, there was an when this was subdivided up, there was an easement there. Easement.
Continue to use that easement? Or is that easement will continue to be active? There's no new driveway plan?
Not at this time. We'd continue, it's existing site coming off the back. We'd like to ideally continue using it rather than having to create a new entrance off the highway there.
So this might be where that DOT permit was never required.
Yeah.
Because it was an existing right of way for residents and it looks like their driveway is actually coming off the right of way versus off the state road.
Yeah. Probably right. Okay. Detail to scale drawings showing location, construction specifications, and drainage features roads, sidewalks, access points, driveways. Traffic control features, I think that what we have here will cover that pretty well. Air quality. I would say that that's really not even applicable here. Erosion control plan, I noted that that was part of the packet. Certified contractor name,
It's not required.
you probably don't know. Pardon me,
It's
huh?
not required. It's not shoreline.
Oh, you're right, okay. Historic places, I noted there was a map there that showed the archaeological historic resources, and there are none there. That's complete. Yeah. Information needed to meet air quality standard, I'd say not applicable. Information that meet access to public streets. I think that's the same issue that we just talked about, and we already have an access there, so it's nothing new. Historic and archaeological resources, not applicable, might be applicable, but there are none. You're not gonna be storing any hazardous materials or anything like that, as part of your operation, and you certainly, I don't envision somebody coming in and filling the place full of barrels of gasoline.
So do your contracts, lease agreements prohibit the storage of hazardous chemicals?
Yes, if you look at the site development plans, I have some notes on sheet 2 there. There's gonna be no bulk storage of petroleum or hazardous substances allowed on these sites.
So you're gonna just continue with what you guys, your policies are now?
Right.
Current storage, that'll just continue with the new storage. There's not gonna be any changes to the overall,
Nope.
right?
Rich,
Yeah.
do you think we should get a copy of their lease agreement?
Pardon me?
Do you think we should review a copy of their lease agreement just to see what is prohibited and what is not?
Yeah, wouldn't hurt. Do you have can you forward to Hans a copy of the lease agreement that you are, incomplete one that you would have with the individuals renting the facility?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay. Okay, evidence media DEP citing regulations for oil storage and hazardous materials facility. I would say that's not applicable. It's not what we have in front of us. Copy of application provided to the fire chief by the planning board or CEO. Has that been done, Hans? Copy of the application to the fire chief?
Yes, we have a copy.
Yeah.
We have a copy for him. He has not seen it.
Okay, we haven't heard back yet.
No.
No, okay. That's complete. Other information needed to meet material storage standard, including bulk storage of combustible and flammable materials and hazardous substances. I think that will be covered when we deal with the lease agreement, but I also note that you have said that there will be no storage of hazardous materials on site. Visual impact assessment, that's not applicable. We do have some issues, or we will be talking to you, Chuck, as we go on tonight about buffering requirements, and particularly one of the issues is that when the original applicant got a permit, one of the conditions of approval was that 30 trees be planted as agreed upon by the neighbors. Agreed upon by the neighbors as stated by them at the planning board meeting. Now, I don't know what they said, but there should have been 30 trees planted by the original applicant, which have not been planted. So as a current owner, your client may be required to plant those trees.
Okay, I believe there were quite a number planted right along the right of way.
Mhm.
And I'm not entirely
Right.
sure if it was supposed to be along the adjacent properties with our site. But we do have some along the buffering, and we'd be, whatever needs to be planted, we'll bring it up to those standards.
Okay,
There are some that in those plans, bushes,
along the road,
yeah, but I was just
so
looking.
you can see them on the photograph.
Yeah,
correct?
that's true. Before I forget, can you add me to that list? I wasn't on that chain, that email chain that went out last week.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't receive it. And Craig didn't see me on it, so just move forward.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry,
Yeah,
I thought I put two in there. I'm not sure that happens.
but I did see, I did see some planting here. Yeah, they might have to add to that if they didn't, if the original, they didn't meet the original requirement.
Okay. The next thing I have on the list, checklist.
Yeah, they got the
here
B and B planting details here,
is the
the city of street planting detail and some shrub planting detail there.
for the new,
Yeah, so it looks like they're
Okay.
putting some in.
Yeah,
They plan
yeah.
on putting some new ones in. That's what I'm talking about, for the new ones. I'm not saying existing.
okay, yeah,
And then, yeah, it
Yeah,
looks
they-
like they're gonna be putting in.
Yeah.
But they might have to,
yeah. And there are some specific standards in the commercial development review ordinance that say what does need to be planted.
Right.
Um,
but yeah, I mean, that's conditional, it's probably conditional, very plus trees.
Okay, plan based on IF&W criteria, critical areas program. Recommendations to mitigate impact on natural areas and wildlife habitat. I didn't see anything on the beginning with habitat map that affected this particular area. So I don't think that is really an issue for this application.
Just one last thing, if you could make a note, it, on the conditional with the plant and the trees, it says to be agreed upon by neighbors, like you stated. Do we know if they put anything together with the neighbors and the neighbors agreed upon?
No, we
it?
don't know
Yeah,
that. And I'm not sure who we're talking about for neighbors.
right,
It was pretty wishy-washy
Right.
back when the first permit was issued.
right,
And
so,
there was a second permit issued, correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but there was the original permit that Bob Wadley got for this project, and then, and maybe it was Bob again, came back and got an expansion for a couple more buildings. And now we're, I think, into our third expansion request. But yeah, we do need to deal with that buffer as to whether, we don't have a lot of specifics on that planting. If there is in fact 30 trees planted, the photograph I saw, one of them showed along the road, there were trees planted. I assume they were trees. And I'm not, maybe that,
these little ones there.
Yeah.
I don't
See
know,
along-
right along 135,
yeah,
yeah. Cause it looks like there's trees there, a couple trees there. I don't know, the street, can't really tell them that,
Yeah. But if you look at that and, you know, you talk about the neighbors as
Well,
agreed
that's-
by the
but,
neighbors.
right, that's the problem, is that stated, so.
The owner of the facility is the house on the right-hand side. And I don't know whether they were talking about, you know, the owner's on the left-hand side, but
Right.
for all the stuff we got there, I'm not sure they would have done.
It's wishy-washy, but trees and on the street property lines, it's come up a lot. I'm gonna make a big deal about
If I may chime in here.
it. Yeah,
If you guys have a copy of my plans, page 5. I do have a lighting, landscaping and utilities plan. When we went out and surveyed it, we had we counted 22 shrubs along the right of way. And then we're proposing, I don't have an exact count here with me. You know, another 25 to 30 along the,
Right.
that's what we're proposing. Just for, and
Yeah.
if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Page 5 there.
Now, some of the trees that you're proposing to plant would be down along the new facility. The expanded facility?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that was my point, is that if there's no condition on this one, obviously, you know, and they had a condition, but it looks like he's in his new, he would be needing that someone, you know,
Yeah.
he's at, well,
Yeah, it'd be hard for us, based on this condition, if they've got 20 trees planted up here by the road.
right. Right, and then they're adding all these, you know,
Yeah.
bushes of
So
trees.
the ordinance itself has specific screening standards for neighboring properties for as these pertain to non-residential use when it abuts a residential development, multi-family building or a home. So there are some standards and talks about pretty specifically what needs to be planted. So that will be an issue to talk about when we deal with the guts of the application.
Well, this is what we have. But this is all the proposed.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, miss that one.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any. Again, jump in if you. Do you have a copy of the checklist?
Yeah, what, just this one?
No,
So,
it's in the application.
Oh, yeah.
That way you can follow
Yeah.
along.
it's on page 35 of 38 right here.
Thank you, you're taking care of
Thank you very much for that.
I mean, Craig, would you agree that there really is no other information we need for this resource protection standard?
Yes.
So we're going to page 36 now.
I'm like,
Board requiring post-development noise monitoring, I would say not applicable. Information needed to meet noise standard, that's not applicable. Exterior lighting plan,
Also right here.
yeah, that's in the plans.
yeah. We proposing to post-development light monitoring, no. Parking standards, there's no real parking here, it's basically coming and going.
Chuck, will there be storage of RVs, boats and things that would be parked? Is there a parking area?
Is there a designated parking area? Is that your
Yeah,
question?
for storage of like RVs, boats and trucks, extra vehicles.
No, this facility won't have any outdoor vehicle storage. This is all just building interior storage.
Okay.
There will be no parking spaces whatsoever in it.
Right, that you can pull up and park, you know, right next to the next building and access your storage unit.
Sometimes the storage units have, you know, a few spaces, you know what I mean? But yeah, it doesn't look like anything's being had.
Yeah, there's no office on this one, so
That's
there's no really
not-
need.
Hans, do you know that there's a, next item is a written statement from the fire chief on capacity of the fire department to provide adequate protection. Do you know, is that something that we require the applicant to do, or is that something the town does? Check with the fire department.
We could do it, I mean, I brought these to him before, he's put them on his desk and said, looks good.
Yeah.
Being as, you know, it's not a high occupancy facility, it's not a business,
Yeah,
but, I'll run it by Dan tomorrow.
okay, all right. Written statement from the sheriff's department approving any proposed security measures. You indicated in the application that you won't be using the sheriff's department, correct?
Correct. We do have a gate proposed.
Yeah. Information to meet public safety and emergency services. I'm not sure what that would be.
That's kind
I'd pretty much say NA. Information to meet screening of structures. We have information. The real question is, as we review the ordinance, next time, whether or not we feel what is being proposed is adequate. But we do have the information that the applicant has proposed.
Yes.
So I would say that is checked. For a few of proposed signs, you don't plan to change the sign, is that correct?
Not as part of this application, no, we have no changes to the sign. If they want to change
Okay.
it down the line, they'll submit a separate application to you guys.
Yeah, they have done that, there is been one approved already.
Yeah.
Outside of this application.
Mhm. Information to meet sign standards, that really not applicable because we have the existing sign. Stormwater management plan, here is where, I guess the question is, I guess I would ask, is there a stormwater management plan as part of the application? Or are you planning to use the DEP process to deal with the stormwater management plan?
I do have a grading plan which outlines all of our swales and drainage features on the site.
That's right, yeah, stroke there.
Okay,
So you just plan on going to the lowest grade there in the back?
Yeah, the whole site will drain down there, infiltrate and be treated, and then we don't anticipate any issues meeting the state DEP standards.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like it's nicely set up.
Yeah.
Down there, you get the lowest grade.
okay.
Right.
so we're not in that, well,
So does that,
stormwater management plan, I mean, there is.
it's in there, it's in the plan, so I would prove that, would, yeah.
I got that checked.
Oh, you do, right.
Other information to meet stormwater management standard. Article 6, section 13. Not sure. One thing I would strongly suggest, Chuck, is that you formally apply for that stormwater management plan with DEP. Because one of the standards in that section 13 is that any project which requires a stormwater management from Maine DEP must submit a copy of the approval permit at the time of the application. So, essentially that provision hasn't been met yet because you haven't gotten one. And if you get one from DEP, you've solved a lot of your, I wouldn't say problems, but solved both the stormwater management plan for us and the phosphorus control plan that our ordinance deals with. So I would strongly recommend that you get that permit from DEP.
Can I ask, in the past, is it typical to, I mean, we normally, we go through the local authorities, planning boards, and get at least some sort of even condition of approval based on state permits. As we wouldn't like to go, typically we don't go to the state unless we know that, the project has legs and that it's additional fees and design work if, if it's not gonna end up at least conditionally approval.
Yeah.
How do you?
I don't know whether we could deal with that as a condition of approval, but essentially based on our ordinance, we don't have a complete ordinance if we don't have that permit in hand.
So we could basically stop at that point and say, come back when you have it.
Yeah.
and Give the approval.
Yeah, that's basically how we've been operating. So to answer your question, I guess we may not actually deal with applications in that manner where we go start conditioning a bunch of things. I think to meet what we have been doing, it's basically get your permit from DEP, bring it to us, and we will it directly solves an issue, not solves, but it gets that issue out off of our plate. And you got your 2 for 1, the DEP and ours at the same time.
Yeah, but I hear what Chuck is saying, it's kind of a who fit in when the jump through unless they thought
You're right.
this was possibly going to be approved and,
Mhm.
the DEP thing, the grade of this land, if I was out of the room, did you already cover how much fill is going to be brought in? Or are you going to build up these units, or are they going to be, I mean, the grade of this lot drops significantly after those last 2 buildings.
I think you may have been in your office when he addressed that the grade is going to stay relatively the same,
They are.
not going to be built up. Yeah. So, anyway, I guess I would entertain any comments from the board regarding the DEP application first, before we proceed.
It's a tough call, because I understand what you're saying, and we would like to know if he's gonna get approved for spending more money.
I mean, he clearly passed the first one, right? The one above, it's that second one, but I agree with you, Craig.
Yeah, I am, but
It's not like it doesn't seem too sophisticated storage, you know what I mean? As far, but like you're saying, the DEP gets involved, but
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't we,
is there numbers in here?
We can put,
we move it forward on a condition that if they have a problem with it,
yeah,
you know?
we'll do that for now. Just that, if we approve the project, it would definitely be with a condition that they provide the stormwater permit from DEP before construction begins.
Right.
Okay, subsurface wastewater disposal, there will be none on site, correct?
Correct. Yep, there's no office, no residential uses here.
Okay, yeah. Other information to meet waste standards, and the other, talk about waste standards. As I recall, in your application, you indicated that, there won't be like dumpsters there for people that, if somebody's going to dispose of something, they take it and do with it whatever they legally can do with their own stuff. You're not out there emptying. I guess one of the questions I would ask is, what would happen if the storage wars here, or whatever, somebody has a storage facility and they never pay their bill, and you go in and clean it out? Would the plan be to take that to the Belgrade transfer station?
That's a really good question. I'm not entirely sure how they handle a situation like that. That does seem likely, or, but yeah, there's no dumpster.
Yeah.
Maybe that's addressed in the lease agreement, but that's something I'm not sure on.
Okay, Hans?
No, I'm just saying, what he just said, it would probably be outlined in their lease agreement.
Yeah.
That we're
I
requesting.
mean, whatever, their current policy they must have something in their current policy. If somebody doesn't pay the storage, what do they do with it?
Or even if somebody empties it and dumps it.
Right.
Throws it out, all right, unit's empty, give me my deposit.
All right. Okay. Reason I asked the question originally, I think there was something in the ordinance that said that the transfer station would not be the site to people to dispose of. I gotta look that up, but for now, we're consider it complete.
If the transfer station can handle, isn't it? But,
Yeah,
I don't think that's gonna be much of an issue.
I agree. Groundwater quality and quantity impact assessment, there really is no groundwater issue. I would say that's NA. Copy of deed restrictions related to drinking water and groundwater protection. Again, I don't see that. Again, jump in, anybody, if you disagree with me as I go along here. I don't hear anything, that I will assume that what I'm saying is addressed by the board. Drinking water program, public water supply approval and source water protection plan. Again, say that is NA. Copy of main DEP stormwater management permit. I will put a condition on approval. Phosphorus export control method. Here is where question comes in, is there are specific phosphorus control measure requirements. If they get the DEP stormwater management plan, we've essentially said in the ordinance that that's meeting the phosphorus control standard as well. So I would say that if we said that we would approve a condition, I thought I heard you leave it for a second. I'm hearing things. That if they get that permit, then it meets the phosphorus, the stormwater management plan. We meet the phosphorus control thing. So all of these kind of fit into the conditional approval. We can say we're gonna approve the project, assuming we do, with the condition that they get the stormwater management plan, which will address both of the stormwater and phosphorus control.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
And construction would not begin until that plan was, that permit was obtained from DEP.
I mean, I would assume they initially got approved, so whatever levels of phosphorus or management needs to be done is already being taken care of.
Well, I think when the first permit was issued back in 2005, those requirements were not part of our ordinance.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right,
If they were ignored,
all right.
not by the applicant, but I think the planning board would have missed it.
So then the original buildings that are there now, the 5 current buildings, they wouldn't have to apply to that, or would they now? Would that open the door for that, the original 5 buildings to now have to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the whole
For the whole
site.
site.
And right now, what they're proposing, they're gonna basically double the size, but so there's a lot more disturbed soils
Right,
that would be likely to run off. Which is why I was wondering about the elevation to create a good collection pit. I've seen some really elaborate ones where the discharge water coming out of the collection pit is crystal clear, where the water in the pit is murky. So.
All right. Let's see. Supplemental site plan requirements for mineral extraction, no?
So what happened with the, other information to water quality standard? The one above that,
Which one is that now?
the one we read above the supplemental site plan.
Oh. I don't think, there really is anything,
No,
other than get your stormwater permit, before you begin. And you
so
covered our
this
requirements.
is kind of included in this.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we may be dealing with, all of the, non-issue items at this point, the mineral extraction. We don't need a hydrological study. These are all related to mineral extraction standards, reclamation plan. Overnight accommodation, I think we probably have covered, yeah, we have. Okay. Well, let me say this, my thoughts are that. There are 2 issues, and one, if the board decides that, going back to stormwater and phosphorus, that we can wait as a condition, that before we can approve as a condition that they can't begin the operation until they provide that DEP permit. We could, if we take that approach, we can review the application as a, we'll say, non-complete application, but covered by a condition. The other issue that I think, and this is as much for Chuck as it is for my thoughts to the planning board, is that we will need to review closely the proposed planting standards as it applies to the ordinance itself. And also in relationship to the original condition of planting, that we're happy with what's being planted as a screening provision. As I reviewed the application, those were the only 2 things that really bit me, if you will, in reviewing it is, stormwater, phosphorus control, and the screening requirements. I don't know put it this way, nothing else in the application of the project kind of stood out to me. This may be a problem. I don't.
Yes,
Yeah,
all that I would see.
yeah. And I know you've got planting proposal. So, we have to say that the planting proposal is there. But I would encourage you, Chuck, to look at, section 15. Let's see. So I changed my page here. Back to 6. I'm thinking of the screening standards. That way closer to the thing. Oh. Okay, it's section 11B. Well, 11B. And make sure that even if you need to come back to us with some revisions to your planting plan, make sure that they come back that and meeting section 15B, because that is the screening standards, and we'll be looking to see that if the screening does in fact meet section 15B. And if it does, I think we're well on our way to approval of the, I didn't want to say approval because I can't speak for the board, if you will. But my personal thinking is we're well on our way to approval of the project. If the screening provisions are met and we approve it with a condition on the stormwater plan. I agree. Okay. So that I guess is where we're coming from or thinking at this point. For the most part, I'm not say most part, I think we have a complete application, providing that we deal with the stormwater as a condition. We do have screening provisions provided. Whether or not we need to modify them, we can deal with that at the next meeting after you've had a chance to review section 15, section 11B. Is that okay?
Yep, that sounds good to me. We'll take a look at the plantings, make sure we meet everything. My other question would be if we get any comments from the fire chief. We'd hopefully like to address those before the next meeting as well, if there are any.
Okay,
I will be in contact with you if there's, if you said something. Okay, Chuck.
I don't
Sure.
envision that being a problem, but
Also, we'll notify butters.
yeah, we do need to notify butters. Now, when, I guess that's a question of Hans and Chuck at the same time. Do you envision this coming back to the planning board at the next meeting or?
Chuck has been put off for one meeting already, so I think we
Yeah,
go in the service of
and I apologize, Chuck, I was the one that failed to be able to come to the last meeting when we had to postpone it.
Quite all right. It's summertime. I get everyone, people are busy.
It was something on my schedule that I really couldn't get out of, but I didn't know it. I thought the event was on Friday and it turned out it was on Thursday. Okay, anything else from the planning board? Okay, well, thanks, Chuck. You get whatever you needed together and get to Hans, and Hans will get to you whatever he gets back from the fire chief.
Sounds good. When is the next, Hans, do you know when the date for the next meeting is?
It'll be the 15th,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Now, question, and it may be a question for Sarah. We dealt with whether we had a complete application or not. We really didn't go into detail of the application or talking about the problems, other than there may be an issue with phosphorus control or whatever, and the what was the other one? Oh, screening. Would they be eligible to participate in the next meeting? I know they can participate, but whether or not they can have to recuse themselves from.
No, I don't think so.
Well, like you said, we just did the checklist. We didn't actually go through the
Yeah.
application line by line.
And that was part of my reason for not getting into too much detail tonight, because I didn't want anybody to come back and say, hey, you dealt with this and a whole bunch of stuff was discussed and, but I think all we really did was decide we have an application.
Right, I feel anybody
Yeah.
in the next meeting can do it and vote.
Okay. Well, good, Chuck. Good to meet you, over the air.
You too.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So can I keep this? Right here?
I've got a full collection of stuff here from, the application. Now, Hans, our next item on the agenda is minutes, but Sarah's not here. And at the last meeting, it was just me, Sarah, and Nick. So we can't really vote on the minutes until next meeting when Sarah's here.
I guess that's a push then, isn't it?
What was that?
That's a push. Push it off.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the minutes are tabled. I note that you have a item on definitions, I think it was.
Yes. And dug out from the main state library, digital library, the land use districts and standards. Which I believe these are the definitions that the subsurface wastewater department that the state is starting to adopt through all their agencies. So that this
Now, isn't this just what used to be work? It says for the jurisdiction of the main land use planning. Commission.
Yeah.
I think that's what used to be the work territories, correct?
it is.
Okay.
And shoreland is basically falls into land use. Land use is rather broad. And it's-
Yeah, but the
I think
land
it's-
use planning commission is a specific branch of government that does the shoreline zoning, the site location and stuff in the northern Maine of, say, northern Maine, the undeveloped areas that are under the jurisdiction of the land, what used to be, it was the land use planning commission, and now it's work. Oh, no. I don't know.
It's LUPEC,
Yeah,
LUPC.
loops, yeah,
LUPC.
so, I think these are the standards for those unorganized territories, but anyway, go ahead.
Just trying to find something, like our discussion earlier about structure versus driveway. And I looked that up here and it's kind of exactly like you said, but I feel like we need to have a guideline of definitions that we use when we were discussing our zone applications and so forth, because I'm coming across a lot of old permits that have been approved that don't meet the definitions of what's written on the
Of
permit.
what we deal with today,
Yes,
like a bunkhouse.
Same thing.
the bunkhouse, a dwelling unit, a dwelling structure, and it's just, they're slicing hairs now. And I'm in hot water in a lot of locations because things have been permitted You know, it's like a bunkhouse is without plumbing.
Uh-huh.
And they assess it by the number of beds in there.
A bunkhouse is without one of three things, a cooking facility, plumbing, or bedroom, right?
And that's
That's the way we deal with the shoreline zoning. I think what Hans was saying is,
that's not what the state says.
like DHS now considers a bunkhouse can't have plumbing or whatever.
Can't have any, I think none of, any of that, right?
No, it has beds. So.
Basically
Yeah,
sleeping
bunkhouse.
quarters.
It can have electricity, it just can't have plumbing or,
Yeah.
And here it even says there's a size requirement, limitation, so an accessory structure consisting of detached sleeping quarters having no plumbing for the temporary accommodation of guests of the property owner or facility while the owner or facility operator is an occupant of the principal dwelling or at the facility. A bunkhouse that is accessory to a dwelling can be up to 750 square feet or 50% of the footprint of the principal dwelling unit, whichever is larger.
So I guess I would ask, are you suggesting that possibly the shoreline zoning ordinance could be modified to include more specific or more restrictive definition than what we consider a bunkhouse today?
And I think moving forward, we need to adopt a standard that is used by the state.
it doesn't say anything about kitchen in that, huh?
No, there's,
But this isn't what we go by, though, is it?
No, it isn't.
What do we
Right?
go, what department do we go by?
Uh,
Department of Human Services, like DHS?
well, it's, I guess I'd say we go by what the shoreline zoning ordinance, which comes from the guidelines, we currently go by. What if the planning board and the townspeople ultimately decided we want to be more restrictive than the guidelines or our ordinance says in the guideline, we can be more restrictive than the state standards, if you will. And, you know, I personally, I like the idea, and whether or not we ever went there or not, I don't know, but the idea of saying that a bunkhouse is basically sleeping quarters, not, well, it's too easy to approve something as a bunkhouse with toilet facilities and sleeping quarters, and then convert it to kitchen or have a kitchen in it. It's very easy to do that. It's more easy to control or to enforce the fact that you can have a sleeping quarters with electricity or something like that, but no plumbing facilities. It's a heck of a lot easier to regulate that than it is to, with the current definition. Whether people would buy into it might be another
I
question.
disagree with that, because if you're gonna be sleeping there, you gotta get up and go to the bathroom. I myself get up several times a night.
I mean, too.
You're gonna be.
Me too.
Running outside, this is on the ground,
Yeah.
the women ain't gonna love it. You know, so I disagree with that, and plus, you know, landowners have, you know, rights and be able to do things with their property as well. So you can take any ordinance, and it's gonna be easy to break that ordinance. I mean, so you can't just focus on one thing. I mean, it's just part of the whole enforcement thing. It's just the way it is. People can do whatever on any of these ordinances once it's approved. They're taking the risk of breaking the law themselves. So if they get caught, you know, everybody speeds. The only, when you get caught is when you pay the fine.
And it's,
Because I myself I like the way it's set up right now. You know, have one of, I mean, have two of the three.
Where's the two of the three written?
Mhm.
Where's two of the three written in our?
Then the dwelling unit, whether or not it becomes a dwelling unit. It's not specific to a bunkhouse or whatever, but we define a residential dwelling unit as having single family with eating, sleeping, and plumbing facilities. Check the definition of, and it may not be in, I don't know how they define it here.
Well, I know in the subsurface wastewater,
Uh,
the bunkhouses are dry. And dwelling units are, that's another loosely defined thing, and here's the structure. Or any part thereof that is intended for use or is used for human habitation, consisting of a room or group of rooms designed and equipped. For use primarily as living quarters, including any minor home occupations for one family, accessory structures intended for human habitation that have plumbing are considered separate dwelling units. So that's where we get into
But that doesn't
plumbing in
apply-
another building, it becomes a separate dwelling unit.
This doesn't apply to us though, because the guys out there doing the septic designs are designing them, so those guys would know what the wastewater thing says for us. It's 40 gallons a day. I just had one designed. Just had one designed last year. And it's half the amount of a dwelling is what the bunkhouse is supposed to be using. So that's what, for every bedroom in the bunkhouse is half the amount of a dwelling. And I just had one design and those guys would know what they're talking about. So this doesn't apply to us.
I think that one of the things is, like the definition you're just looking at, that is dealt with in the unorganized townships in the state. We don't have it in shoreline zoning, we don't have a definition of bunkhouse. We have a definition of a dwelling unit. But there's no bunkhouse definition, it's basically, and I think that's how it gets, we give approvals for as an accessory structure that doesn't have all the measures of a dwelling unit, eating, sleeping, bathing, or whatever. And so we deal with it in shoreline zoning is it's either a dwelling unit or it's not. And if you have two structures or one structure with two duplex or whatever, you have two dwelling units if you've got set up for two living quarters for different families, with each of them having three requirements of dwelling unit. But if you have in shoreline zoning, if you have a house with all the facilities and you decide you want to build a sleeping quarters or whatever you want to call it, we don't define it as a bunkhouse, but it's an accessory structure that doesn't have all three. As long as you're meeting the lot
So-
coverage standards and
I think
speaking
I
over
think to
here.
have it be a separate dwelling unit, it has to be like a self-sufficient building.
Right.
So, like they can sleep, they can cook, they can use the bathroom. Then now you like, so you could rent it to somebody and they never come into the main house. And then if you have a septic system already currently built, that say it's good for, 5 bedrooms, and you only have 4 bedrooms in the main house. And then you have a bunkhouse, why couldn't you put plumbing in, if it's not specifically says there's no plumbing allowed, if it specifically says no plumbing, then there's no plumbing. But I'm saying, if you have a septic system, why can't that just be another bedroom, even though it's detached, it's just a bunkhouse, people just sleep in there and use the bathroom. As long as this current septic system can maintain that.
basically, well, I can understand that somebody saying. Well, let me say this. Each one of them, part of the issue is, we don't want too much, if you will, lack of a better word, congestion on a single lot. We want one dwelling unit per lot. With each
One.
dwelling unit needs 200 foot of frontage, needs 40,000 square feet. And if you put another house on there, your average dwelling unit per lot is double.
Yeah, and not have dwelling unit. There's one primary structure alone. That would have a kitchen. Anything else is a dwelling unit.
Right,
Only allowed one per lot.
right, that's what, that's.
So if you
that's
create
what-
a bunkhouse, put plumbing in it, now you have a dwelling unit, you just
So
create.
it's an accessory.
Yeah, but that's not a kitchen.
That's-
Kitchen.
It's saying you're allowed one
Kitchen
kitchen.
is the crossover to primary.
Right,
Principal
yeah.
structure.
Right, but a kitchen, another kitchen would make that a separate dwelling unit. correct?
Yes, what you were
Right,
saying is,
what I'm saying is.
what's
if it's-
wrong with hooking up to the septic system?
Right, I'm not saying put a kitchen in there, because
Okay,
now,
okay,
if you
yeah.
put a kitchen and a bathroom,
Mhm.
now that's another
So if you
dwelling.
had a 4 bedroom, if you had a 5 bedroom septic
Septic.
design,
Right.
you had 4 bedrooms in your house, you'd be able to put 2 bedrooms and an accessory structure.
Two beds,
2 beds.
2 bedrooms.
Oh, 2 beds.
not rooms.
I'm
Okay,
pretty sure bedrooms.
well, I'm dealing with the septic people all the time, and they're saying that they're creating this detached. Bedroom, and they're saying room.
I just had one designed.
Well, you can have a septic design, it doesn't mean that.
Well, they gotta follow the rules, they can't just design it, not, you
Well,
know.
show me where it is, I'll look at it.
So you're saying you went through, or somebody went through DHX and got a permit for a 2 bedroom?
I have what I'm building now is a 3 bedroom house. We have a 2 bedroom bunk
Mhm.
and
Separate building.
second building.
How big is the lot?
So like an acre, a little over an acre.
Because if it's more than two, meets the minimum lot size of greater than 80,000, you can have two.
No, it's not 2 acres.
But if he doesn't, if this thing you're building doesn't have a kitchen in it, correct?
It's already existing. I gotta pull the kitchen out, so. But I have the septic designed and it's half of a bedroom. So there's 2 bedrooms in there, so the septic's designed for 4 bedrooms. I can bring, next week, I can bring the design in, I have
Yeah,
it.
so there's three, so there'll be three bedrooms in the main,
Yeah,
2 in the bunk,
yeah,
the septic's designed for 4.
right.
And then, yeah,
Oh, because there's a bunkhouse, you only need half of.
Half.
but you gotta pull the
Yeah.
kitchen, you gotta pull the kitchen.
Okay, but the kitchen, okay, the kitchen had to come out.
Yeah, the kitchen's gotta come
I
out,
have to pull the kitchen out.
cause if you left
Otherwise,
the
it'd be
kitchen,
2
that'd
dwelling
be 2
units,
dwelling,
Yeah,
right,
and you'd have your 1 bedroom would now turn into 2 for the purposes
right.
of the septic system. If they had a.
Well, yeah, if you have.
well, you
if
can't have 2 rest, you can't have 2 dwellings,
Right, you can't do
Right,
that.
right,
so you need to pull the kitchen out.
yeah, okay, yeah, I understand.
So we already have stuff in place for this, I don't understand what the problem is.
Yeah, Hans, maybe you can, maybe you don't want to, but tell us, and you don't have to say who it is, but what is, like, what particular problem are you running into where you say you got people?
Oh, there's several. It's not, I'm not worried about.
So do they have all 3? Do they have cooking facilities? And if they do, they're breaking the law, then you can enforce it. But if they don't have all 3, then they're fine.
Okay, well, you can tell me that. But I go to Brent Lawson, the director of the subsurface wastewater. He sees an accessory structure that has 2 rooms and plumbing. He's calling that 2 bedrooms. He's saying it's a dwelling unit. It's not allowed. Pull the plumbing out of it.
You know, I haven't heard that.
And bunkhouse,
No other town does it, Rome doesn't do that, I mean,
It doesn't mean because it's done in Rome.
Well, I was gonna say, do you know whether, this is something new or?
Read what this says, and this is what I've got to go by.
so what is this talking?
This is the state guidelines. Well, it's not DHHS, right?
Well, let me ask you this, what if it's so you're saying that two bedrooms in one bunkhouse has to be counted for 2 bedrooms on the total septic?
Yeah.
That's the beef, that's the beef, yeah,
Because they're looking at how many bodies have you got.
right.
Each body's gonna use so much water.
Yeah, but what if you have one bed and it's a king bed and you know, or queen, you get 2 people in it?
We're going by accessory structure,
Okay,
not a bunkhouse, so that's another thing, so,
well, it says.
Yeah,
we don't,
We don't define one.
right,
My thing is, what if you have one bedroom with 2 people sleeping in there? Or you have 2 bedrooms with one, you know, one individual, 2 individuals, you get the same amount of people in the house.
Well, and that's why they're going, I mean, there's loopholes people are jumping through. See here, bunkhouse, no plumbing, they assess it as 20 gallons per day per bed. So if somebody has a room, a typical real bunkhouse, a big shed, and a bunch of bunk beds in it, they're gonna come and say, all right, there's 8 beds. Times 2, that's 160 gallons a day for the unit. That's what you design your system for. So people are getting their finished basements and putting a bunch of bunks in there for the kids to go down, game room, and play and sleep. They're not being assessed as a bedroom, the systems are getting overloaded and fail. There's a lot of, you know, you make a rule, there's a way to cheat.
Do you know, is that provision that you mentioned that Brent Lawson was saying, is that a new provision in the plumbing code, or has that been there for years?
Which provision?
The one that says if you, have a bunkhouse, you can't have, toilet facilities.
It's a definition, this is in the definitions of bunkhouse. Of this ordinance or this. Regulations.
Reason I say it is, whether it was new or not, is that, you know, if it's old, this provision has been there for years. Shoreline zoning standards have been there for years, haven't changed a whole lot.
But which one,
This all of a sudden,
which ordinance pertains to us? You know, like, does that supersede?
It should say shoreline, yeah.
Yeah.
All shoreline ordinances. You know, have to have adequate sanitation.
yeah,
But
whatever,
then Craig said you
typically,
just got-
whatever the most restrictive standard is what applies. In other words, you got the plumbing code.
Right,
If they say you can't have plumbing in there,
right.
then you gotta meet that code. If it's more restrictive than shoreline
But
zoning.
Craig's saying he just had this done,
Uh-huh.
was approved and done, you know what I mean? So it's, I don't know, we gotta figure it out.
We're looking at one now. It was a cottage 25 feet off the water. Well, they want a bigger house year round behind it. They're building the house. They were gonna redo the old camp, like Frank says, leaving the plumbing in it and having 2 bedrooms. Brent Lawson saying, no, pull the pipes out.
And this new facility, the new old facility won't have kitchen in it,
Not supposed to have a bathroom.
Yeah.
Not supposed to have anything.
under the plumbing code.
Because the new house is set back where it should be, 4 bedrooms, beautiful place, it's gonna have full septic and everything. But the old building, because it's one lot, one dwelling unit allowed,
What if they just put a bigger septic system?
it doesn't meet the code,
Yeah.
only one dwelling unit.
I think the difference is, what I see the difference, and I think people say, well, that's obvious. The difference is the plumbing code doesn't allow toilet facilities or plumbing, and shoreline zoning is less restrictive in that sense, but
Because doesn't have a definition for bunkhouse. I mean, that's where,
That's
Yeah,
the problem.
we don't.
That's the main problem. There's
so
not-
that's what I'm saying, we moving forward need to be careful with the terminology we put on our permits.
You didn't happen to talk to Colin Clark about this, did you?
I did,
What's that?
I did,
What did he say?
he had,
Huh?
he is the same as Frank. He's like 1 unit per lot. I mean, I asked him more specifically, are you updating the definitions and shoreline zone, because if all these definitions were the same, if there was one book to go by, then we're not gonna be playing this agency against that agency.
Yeah, I would say that there, I would think that, and I think that one of the issues is that bunkhouse isn't defined in shoreline zoning, but there ought to be consistency in the rules, so somebody isn't complying with one agency and being out of compliance with another agency's rules.
Well, the thing is, there's some of the agencies, like he told me, he's working on a house float ordinance. Not a house boat ordinance, but a house float ordinance. It should be the same, you know? Why? Why is he in a different, because it's inland fisheries versus DEP.
Well, I guess what I would say in the meantime is you're both the plumbing inspector and the shoreline zoning code enforcement. That if in fact you're enforcing the plumbing code and the plumbing code is more restrictive than the shoreline zoning ordinance, the more restrictive provision would apply. That doesn't mean that I don't agree with Craig that right now anyway, the shoreline zoning ordinance doesn't prohibit it. But if you've got another code that you're enforcing and it's more restrictive, I think you gotta enforce that. But
I
yeah,
don't know, if it's already permitted, it's already permitted. You can't go back and say, oh, no, you can't do that now.
no, I agree. If they got a permit,
It's
Through-
done.
yeah, I would, but kind of for the future. But you got some that have been
People have
built,
gone past the permit, yeah.
did they get both permits
They got a permit for a bunkhouse, legit,
for the?
but then they added plumbing to it without a permit.
And the permit for the boat, bunkhouse was a subsurface wastewater
Bunkhouse.
disposal
No, it
system.
said, no, it just said no kitchen facilities.
Uh,
It didn't say, there was no plumbing permit pulled, there was no mention of an additional bedroom. I mean,
Was there plumbing in it to exist, existing?
No,
So they added it.
it was a fresh build.
Yeah, so breaking, they don't have a plumbing permit for it, so there you go, that's how you enforce it.
Yeah.
But that's different than an existing place that already has plumbing and that we're approving as an accessory structure because it doesn't have all three. But if it doesn't have the plumbing and they don't come get a plumbing permit, then they don't have a permit. You need a plumbing permit to put any plumbing in, regardless.
But let me just go back over, I may not have heard all that you said. If they had already have a plumbing system
Mhm.
in this quote accessory structure, is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what we're considering a bunkhouse is an accessory structure.
Right, but if they got the cooking and the plumbing, or do they have cooking too?
Well, you've got to meet that standard. What he's saying is they're adding plumbing,
Yeah.
and there's the issue, because they have no plumbing permit to add plumbing,
Right.
so.
But if they don't, in shoreline zoning anyway, if they don't have cooking facilities, they could get a permit for.
They could, yes.
But, and Hans is saying, but the plumbing code doesn't permit it. Because it's a bunkhouse. That
doesn't matter where you are, one dwelling per lot is one dwelling per lot. You put plumbing in it, you got two dwellings.
Yeah, see, that's a, well, obviously, it's a difference where they say you get plumbing and bedroom, you got yourself a dwelling unit or dwelling, and shoreline zoning is you keep that kitchen facility out there, you don't have a dwelling.
Right, if you take the kitchen out, you take the kitchen out.
So,
Take the kitchen out, and then you have an accessory unit, you can just have the plumbing.
the only thing I can say is there are two codes out there, they're inconsistent. Somewhat inconsistent because the term is different. We don't define a bunkhouse, but for the most part. We're talking about bunkhouse related dwellings, if you will. The two codes are inconsistent. Guess I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I think shoreline zone, they need to update their ordinance too.
Yeah,
Their verbiage, I mean, it's too old. Too many things have changed. And their verbiage is getting archaic.
Actually, I might
The
call
guy
it-
that wrote
I might call Cole, not to tell him he's archaic, but
it.
to kind of say, just ask him kind of his thoughts on this
It's
matter.
not about, I was gonna be talking to him tomorrow, a couple.
Yeah.
Or shooting emails at least on a couple issues, but,
Uh-huh.
it's just, it's not archaic, it's not evolving. It's, how long has it been since it's been updated?
It's been quite a while since there's been a significant update.
Yeah.
The last real update that I was familiar with was not too long after I got done. The expansion limitation, the 30% was thrown out. And, what we got today.
Ours was revised in 2018. I show
I think the latest big change was the 30% rule was scrapped. And actually, I like the new rule because you really don't have to go back and figure out how much they expanded before. All you gotta do is know how many square feet are there. It's easy for the landowner and it's easy for the planning board.
yeah.
Well, I don't
I mean,
think.
my,
it's-
my personal opinion is if the total square footage isn't changing and then just upgrading a facility a detached facility. Where I have a problem, or where I would think they have a problem is when the person tries to put like, a kitchen and plumbing in there, and now they have like some more income, they can rent that house and some individual, now that's another dwelling, if you don't have enough property, you can't have that.
Yeah,
But if that's just a part of your home and you're trying to have, mainly in the summertime, you're trying to have, family over there and kids sleeping in there and hanging out, like. I don't think that's a problem.
and I think that's,
If we start seeing, having these, houses are having issues with the septic systems and being overloaded and, maybe now you got a problem. Look, we've been, but.
yeah, and that's the whole purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at it as part of the house. It's detached, but it's, as long as it fits the septic. Requirements and the square footage requirements, I mean, I look at it, it's all one, really, it's.
That's another case I've got is, it's not in shoreline zone. It is a single dwelling lot, just over 40,000 square feet. It's got a 2-bedroom home. They want to add 2 more bedrooms. They've got the septic plan ready, ready to go, but they wanted to do the 2 additional bedrooms above the 3-car garage that they're building, separate from the house, with a kitchen.
With a kitchen.
With a kitchen, so. Brent Lawson says it's gotta be attached to the house, can't be separate, can't have a kitchen. when you're creating a duplex.
Right, I agree with
So you
that.
pull the kitchen out. They don't wanna move the garage over and actually attach it to the house, which, they got land, they could do it, but. Because it means moving the meter, and that's expensive. So they're gonna build a breezeway. Connected through a new entrance.
There's all kinds of ways to
That's
get out
heated.
from under it.
You walk in the door, you go
That's
right
passionate.
to the game room, you go left to the main house, you know. We all know what's gonna happen. You
Yeah,
know,
but I
they're
mean,
gonna sell the house, the next owner's gonna throw a kitchen in there, because they're gonna have a kitchen counter, they're gonna have a whole kitchen, just no stove.
Mhm.
They're gonna sneak a microwave into a cabinet. They're gonna. So these people hadn't built yet. They're pretty much. We don't know what's gonna happen. I'm informing them. Best I can right now. So. and,
Well, we had a good discussion. I'm not sure we solved anything.
No, it's gonna evolve, we'll be talking about it.
well, it's
before too long.
very vague, you know, so, but we gotta go off what we got. 2018 is not. You know, that's pretty recent, an update. I mean, it's just plumbing and, you know, kitchen, it's pretty, it's not, should be already defined, I would imagine, it's not, nothing's changed in like the technology of kitchens and plumbing, I mean, other than the microwave and stuff, but. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, is a microwave is considered a cooking appliance now. But if you put it down in your garage where there's no plumbing, you're using it to heat your lunch and reheat your coffee. It's not an issue. So in this person's situation, if it's upstairs, it's a violation, if it's downstairs, it's not.
Right.
Nothing black and white around here.
It's in the same structure, it's just. What room is it in?
Well, one thing I can say, if it's got eating, cooking and plumbing facilities, it's pretty clear. You gotta meet double the standard.
Right.
There's
Right,
gray areas in between.
I agree with that. Got all three, you gotta get rid of one of them.
Yeah. All right. What else? Do you have any, was that your update, if you will?
No, yeah, pretty much, I just wanted to have that discussion again. And we're gonna do it again, because
Mhm.
new stuff evolves.
What do you got lined up for us over the next couple of weeks?
Really not a lot, I think everybody's hiding.
You'd think it would,
Waiting for me to get fired.
I always thought of the summer as being real busy season, but it's almost like people wait until summer's over, then they decide what they, or propose what they want to do for next
Yeah,
year.
interest rates have shot up, you know, I mean, loans, what's in,
That's a big
what's
part of
in.
it.
Well, there's one that's probably gonna come before us, because, it's Castle on Hoyts Island,
Mhm.
cottage is under contract. It's a small place, composting toilet, it's 100 feet off the shoreline from what my best guess, I have not been there actually. But there's an unpermitted deck that's been added to it, little porch in the front and a big, like 16 by 16 on the side. From what I can tell from the lot size, it would have been legal, it just was never permitted at the time, so I told Realtor that. The new owner has to understand the condition, that they need to come before the planning board to get approval. Because I'm sure what's gonna happen is whoever gets it, it's gonna say, well, I got this footprint, or build a bigger house. And we're gonna say, well, this deck was illegal, they might as well make it legal now. What's what I'm thinking, bring it into compliance as soon as possible. Don't have grandiose plans and then show up and we'll tell them, well, the deck is too close to a property line or something like that.
Okay. Do you want this, is this a copy of the,
That was just reference.
okay, I will keep it for the next meeting. And George will be back, Sarah will be back, I guess. Do we have any motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All those in favor? I always wanted to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.